Back again for another video. On today's topic, we'll be talking about survival versus submission. And this is purely dealing with women. I'll mention men, of course, as I do in many of my videos when the topic is about women, in respects to how this works and what this is all about, of course. But the focal point will be women. I want to call it the S&S rule. S&S rule, the survival and submission rule. Because here's the thing that you should understand about women that you may already understand, but just in case you don't, I'm here to spell it out for you. That there are only two types of women, period. You know, there's a woman who does this and does that. I mean, for instance, there are only two types of humans. There's male and female, but in the subsections of how we exist, there are many different things that we do, but there is only male and female. There is no other gender per se. Not excluding hermaphrodites, but they're so small, why even mention them? My whole point is that majority of people fall in the ranges of either a male or a woman. That's it. Nothing else. Male or female, that's all you get. But when it comes to women, there's also two high types, meaning that this is the base unit next to women, that the two positions that they come in, and that's survival or submission. Now, I'm going to start with, of course, a few extremes, I guess you can say, so that I can make the contrast very clear here. The first extreme that I'm going to talk about is the survival mode. Survival mode for women doesn't appear the way you think it does, because it's almost like a valid and true statement. The premise must be true in order for the statement to be true, and the conclusion also must be true in order for the premise to be supported, right? You can infer that if a woman is not submissive, she's in survival mode. And I'll explain. Okay. This is the reason that, let's go with the extremes. The extremes of it. The extremes of it is that women, generally speaking, are herd animals, more so than men. Men are herd animals too. Humans in the whole are herd animals. But why are women more so herd animals than men? It's because they're the most frail to the environment when it comes to male and female and compared. For instance, bone density for men is 30% higher. Therefore, we can grow more muscular structures or larger muscular structures than women can, because our bones can support the pressure. It can support the tension. Their bones cannot. They have smaller bones. They're the most fragile when compared to men on average. So they're the closest to be a victim, if you will, in many circumstances that involve their physical differences when compared to men, right? That should tell you where I'm going with this automatically. But let's look at the existential things. Let's look at the external things, rather. Look at this world that we have, the society that we have. Men, it's generally understood that society was built to protect men and women, right? To protect men and women, or excuse me, women and children. Sorry, to protect women and children. And therefore, that tells you, again, if that's true, then that means that men don't require as much protection physically and, economically, etc., that women do. Women require, especially children, require a lot of these protections that society has afforded them in the form of, social programs, in the form of subsidies, in the form of grants, in the form of, socioeconomics, in the form of education, in the form of all these things that the society that men built meant to do. It meant to make sure that children have a place where they can feel safe, and also women. But the extremes of that range. Now, when I hear a woman say, oh, I'm educated, I don't need a man, and I can provide for myself and I can do this for myself, I do not necessarily need a man. I want a man, but I don't need a man. She's talking from survival mode still. She's talking from survival mode. And how I know she's talking from survival mode, because if you were to take all those things away, then what would she be? In survival mode. Even when she has all these things, they're still dependent upon the system that man created in order for women to be safe, right? There would be no money, there would be no car, there would be no house, there would be no anything if you didn't have men to do it. The survival mode of women is very dependent upon what men choose to do. And I'm talking about the ranges of it. A woman is still in survival mode when she says she doesn't need a man, even if it's actually true in her mind and the way that she perceives herself to be, as far as financially stable and etc. and all these other things in regards to stability. The reason why, again, is because if things came down the pipeline, who she's going to call at any time that anything goes wrong. Who does she call? Men. There may be these times, here and there, in which that she may make a call in for a burglary, and a female police officer shows up. But guess what? Guess what? If there is actually someone in the house, let's say in the numbers of 3, and there's only one female policeman there, guess who she's going to call? Another group of men. She's not going to call a group of women to come to handle this, even if that was the only people on duty at the time. It was just women, which is a rare occasion, but it may be possible. Even if there's only just women and there's an outnumbering number of men faced against these women, and this gets radioed back, somebody's coming in off of duty to on duty. That's what's going to happen. All right. And you can play this back in many different scenarios. Doesn't matter in corporate, you can play it back in schools, you can play it back wherever. Women are still going to fall back on men. This whole, like I said, I don't need a man, and therefore, because I am not needing a man, I'm telling you that I am stable enough, nesting enough in the environment that men have made to be safe for me to say that, it's still survival mode. Because here's the thing about it. Women only have 2 choices. It's either be submissive or stay in survival mode. Because the woman who is I don't need a man because I'm financially and physically stable and all this stuff like this, at the minute something happens, she's questioning that. She's questioning that. But guess what the woman who is submissive does not do? If a woman submits to the proper man, and that man has proven himself to be capable time and time again in order to produce results in regards to the fundamental values in which she depends on to be stable and secure, outside of money, outside of economics, outside of school, or any of these different genres that a woman can be, she's not going to ever question if things will be okay when something goes wrong. She's not in survival mode at all. There's no such thing for her. Why? Because the man is in survival mode. Now, men may be offended by that, but let me pose something to you about this. Men being in survival mode. We're always in survival mode. We have to be in survival mode. Why? Because that takes the survival mode off of the women and the children. You understand? They don't have to worry about the things that we worry about, because they know we got it and they can do their duties in regards to what a family structure is supposed to be. A woman cannot be part of a family structure if she's in survival mode. These are the women. This is the reason why we're having a problem with these women. It's because they are in survival mode. No matter how many resources they have, they're still questioning if they can trust the next person that comes in their lives, because they have not built up a rapport, nor they have not given enough and sacrificed enough in regards to discipline within self to be certain that someone can reciprocate, because they have not done the work to reciprocate themselves in the first place. They are constantly in survival mode. And again, a woman that's in survival mode is not a good fit for family. This is the reason why relationship ends, because you think that, well, me as a man, I'm providing all these things, I'm making sure that she's secure, I'm providing all these things. But the thing of it is, women will pretend like they're not in survival mode with you, but they secretly will be, because it's become a trauma bond kind of thing with them. Yes, women can trauma bond to being in survival mode. Okay. This is how you know the difference. A woman who is not in survival mode, hold on, let me turn this thing on. But a woman who is not in survival mode does not have a bond with survival mode, meaning that she feels very highly uncomfortable without being under a man in regards to her submissiveness given. She feels very uncomfortable about that, because she's not built to weather the storm, because she never had to. Okay, think about it. Let's just say if we could throw together a scenario where there's a woman who is kept, right? Meaning that she didn't experience a hard life because her father took care of the family, and she was married off into another family in which the women are taken care of. She doesn't know what survival mode is like. So the minute that something happens in regards to the separation of her from that family, or her from her families, meaning that she's isolated, she feels highly insecure and uncomfortable about this. She's not bonded with survival mode. Okay. It's traumatic for her to go through this. But a lot of these women, they will nest right in survival mode. Why? Because they are bonded to it. The reason why they feel uncomfortable about being submissive to a man is because they are in survival mode. Any woman that feels uncomfortable about it, because remember just the scenario that I just gave you, a woman who has been submitted to her family and an extended family through marriage, she does not feel uncomfortable with that, but she feels uncomfortable with being in survival mode if something were to put her into that position. This is what kept women in check for hundreds of years. It wasn't the oppressive patriarchy, this and that. No. It was the fact that we had a tradition, throughout many cultures and civilizations in which women were covered, and they never had to feel that sense of being in survival mode. You understand? So any woman that you come across, like I said, these women will play it up. They will play it up like they're not in survival mode. But this is the reason why I say in my earlier videos that you need to, I don't accept no's, okay? I don't accept no's. And the minute I start accepting no's, then I'm questioning if she's in survival mode. And it's not because of me. It's because that's all she knows. A woman who's in survival mode and has been in survival mode all her life, that's all she knows. And the minute that she tries to convert to submission, that's uncomfortable from her, because it doesn't suit what she thinks. She has to be in control. That's the difference here, because a woman that's submissive doesn't want to be in control, because she knows the accountability of those things in which she's controlling, she is responsible for. This is the reason why submissive women are more in tune with accountability and self-accountability, because they are furthest away from survival mode. Okay? These are the only two types of women that exist. Woman in survival mode, woman in submission mode. That's it. For the woman in submission mode, she doesn't have a problem with giving away her authority over anything. She's looking for a man to give that away to. Actively, because she's uncomfortable with having to hold such a great load. This is the reason why in society we see women go through the things that they go through. It's because they are not built for survival mode. When woman was created, because think about this again, remember, women have, and you can look this up yourself, on average, women have 30% less bone density than men do. And you can look up why that's important. I'm not going to go into great detail here, but you can look up why that's important. But I will tell you, it has something to do with a woman's ability to defend herself against the environment, right? But the environment that men have created has taken away the reason why a woman should be in fear and therefore seek a man for protection directly. So it's disillusioned them to believe that they can function just fine in survival mode. You see how this is all coming together? Be careful and vet properly to the point where you understand if this woman is in submission mode, looking for a man actively, because she'll have some type of accountability in her life. And don't get it confused and assume that just because a woman, wants to give away her accountability to you, and I don't mean like her responsibility, her personal responsibility, but the things that she needs from a man to not be in survival mode. Don't be confused by that, because there's a lot of women who will actually manipulate and try to use that, who are in survival mode. This is what you're seeing. You're seeing a bunch of women who claim that when you hear, for example, I'll give you an example. When you hear a woman say, I will be submissive to the right man when he comes along, this is a woman saying that I will give up my survival mode at a high threshold of oversaturation of protection, which that is unnatural. It's unnatural. That's a woman telling you that she's going to secretly pretend like you're taking away the accountability that keeps her in survival mode, and that she's going to be submissive therefore after in response and reciprocation to that. But what has actually happened is she's saying that I'm not ever going to give up my survival mode, but we'll play and pretend like I'm not there until you do one small thing that sends me over the top. This is the reason why with these women in survival mode have no threshold for they have no threshold for grace. They have no ability to be benevolent, because they're already in survival mode. I mean, think about it like this. Let's say that we have it's like a trigger hair gun. It's already there. All you got to do is tap it just a little bit and it goes off. That's exactly what you see, because she was already in survival mode. I mean, think about it. Let's just put it on a scale of 1 to 100. Between one being completely submissive and the threshold that's needed in order to be in survival mode is 100. These chicks are already at 110 and then pretending like they're like 50%. That's the reason why it takes nothing for them to go off at the smallest thing that tests, that may show that that a man's ability to protect isn't perfect, because it's not. A woman who's in submission mode will be very benevolent to a man not being able to do everything at every turn correctly, perfectly. The women who's in submission mode or survival mode, the smallest thing goes off. That's another indicator that she's in survival mode. And again, these women who are in survival mode are not suited for partners. But let's dive into the other portion of it. I mentioned earlier that men may be offended that I say that men are built and meant to be in survival mode, because let's think about this. Okay. Let's say you have a man who wants to take upon a family. Okay. This is majority of men. That there's not a bunch of men that don't care to have family. It's the environment that's causing that response. But internally, that's what we're built for. We're built to take care of family. We're built to protect family. This is the reason why we have that 30% greater bone density. Okay. This is the reason why we have all the faculties that we do in regards to more right, more wrong being inherently true within men. Okay, this is the reason why we set the laws. This is the reason why we built the societies, because we're inherently meant to protect. Okay, I don't think there's many men who would disagree with that. But anyways, we are born in survival mode. This is the reason why the environment is harsh on us. This is the reason why we are built to take that harshness. Not saying that we should, but there are certain circumstances that cannot be avoided. If someone threatens a man's family, he will die for them, especially if that family means a lot to him. He will die for his wife. He will die for his children. And he does it without thought. Why? Because he's a trigger hair away from survival mode. He's always there. He's always ready to go off for his family, right? He's ready to do exactly what it takes at any moment in time, is because he's there already. This is the reason why I recognize the survival mode in women. It's because I'm there. Many men are there. I just don't think that they're comparing themselves to what posture women are positioning themselves in. They're posturing themselves in survival mode at every turn. So one thing you can be for certain about what I'm expressing here: if this woman appears not to be submissive and is saying the cliche things, she's in survival mode. And therefore, you should very much keep your eye on that, right? If you choose to deal with her. I wouldn't suggest it, because a lot of men don't have the tools, the patience, and the know-how in order to deal with those types of women. And they come in varying forms. You know, there are some women that have a high threshold of survivability to them, and there are some women that are on the cusp of wanting to give that up, and they necessarily are in survival mode due to circumstance, not choice. Right? There's a threshold of this, but there's a difference between the woman who wants to be in charge versus who wants to give up being in charge. There's a huge difference in that, and the difference of that is, again, the difference between a submissive woman and a woman who's in survival mode. But anyways, like, comment, and share. Check me out on Facebook. Check me out on the good old Patreon. But until next time, this has been the Wolf and Beta Close. May you have a good day. And of course, peace be with you.